If we take a look at this first slide right here, this first slide represents the entire world. About 50% of the world will move with the same properties as the red runner, and the other 50% of the world will move like the blue runner. Now, if you see the big difference right here with the blue runner, where the heel is pointing outwards and the toes are pointing inwards, and completely the opposite with the red runner, where the heel is pointing inwards and the toes are pointing outward. All of that is determined by how the body deals with the center of gravity, the center of gravity that goes through our hip joint. If the center of gravity goes through the back of our hip joint, which is right here as an example with the S right here, or in front of the hip joint with the end people right here on this side, that's going to be a big difference how we're going to move. If your center of gravity is in front of the hip joint, we're going to be first need to move our shoulder to cause an imbalance in order to start moving. So we have to bring the shoulders over that center of gravity before we can move. With the people that have their center of gravity in the back of the hip joint, they first have to move their hip in order to start moving, whatever it is, walking, hitting a baseball, hitting a tennis ball, hitting a golf ball, throwing a ball, whatever movement it is. We call that walking from the bottom or walking from the top. As you can see, the walking from the bottom people, which is this person right here, the walking from the bottom people have about 70 to 75% of their weight is on their heels naturally. The walking from the top people, you see this guy leaning forward, they have about 70 to 75% of their weight on their forefeet. Now, here you see another example of a walking difference between a walk from the top guy and a walk from the bottom guy. Walk from the bottom guy needs to have their hips going forward first in order to cause that imbalance to move, and a walk from the top guy, where the center of gravity is in front of the hip joint, first needs to bring his shoulders over that center of gravity in order to be able to move. Another big difference between a walk from the bottom and a walk from the top guy is that walking from the bottom people always, as you can see here, have way bigger angles when they're going to start a movement in comparison with a walk from the top guy. They are slightly straight up. If you look at this example right here out of volleyball, which you see the number 7 right here and the number 10, they're both getting ready to get the reception. You see the number 10 right here. He's down here, kind of like even with his head with the net, and this guy all the way up here. Now, when they're going to start moving, see what happens. Okay, the number 10 guy is moving up. So a walker from the bottom guy starts down and his movement starts up, and a walker from the top guy starts up and goes down in his movement. You see right here, same thing, a walking from the top guy, he's on the front foot, leaning forward, weight shift going forward. A walking from the bottom guy, all the weight on his heels. He's sitting back actually in order to do the same thing, play that reception. Now, if we translate that to baseball, you see here the comparison between A-Rod and this female tennis player, who are fairly big angles in order to start their movement. And you see right here, walking from the top guy, walking from the top lady, they start higher and they move down in their movement, in their action. Another example, you see Utley, he's down, weight on his feet right here. You see the spike coming up even in comparison with Jonathan Scope on the right side, who's fielding a ground ball to start a double play, and you see fairly all of his weight on his heel right here. The top of his spike is coming up because he's a walker from the bottom guy, and Chase Utley is a walking from the top guy. Another nice example, just like how people are setting up the difference between a walk from the top guy leaning forward and a walking from the bottom guys kind of like sitting on their heels, all the weight right there. We also call it a walk from the bottom guy. We also call those people pushers because they have longer foot contacts with the ground in comparison with walk from the top guys, who we call rebounders, because all what they do is kind of like a rebounding, bouncing type of people. You see Usain Bolt right here, who is a walk from the top guy. Walking from the top guys or walking from the top athletes are plyometric people, okay, where you can see that the hips are working up and down whenever they move. In comparison with Jason Blake, who's a concentric people walking from the bottom guy, and his hips are working sideways, whatever movement he does. Now, if we compare that, transfer that to baseball, you see those two pitchers are walking from the bottom guy on this side right here when the hips are working sideways, just the same thing as Jason Blake had right here. Now, if we see Bolt working up and down, walking from the top guy, we look at this pitcher, same thing, up and down, because he's a plyometrical guy. Now, talking about corkscrew, I mean this is what we all thought what happened. Of course, this is happening for a walking from the bottom guy. This is 100% sure that a corkscrew happens with a walk from the bottom guy. Although a walker from the top guy is completely different. As we see right here, a walker from the top guy right here, this is how his leg works. Okay, toes will be pointing in, and that leg will work upper leg in, outer leg outside. In comparison with a walker from the bottom, where we can corkscrew, is that the other leg is working away because the toes are pointing away too. That's what we saw on that first picture with those two runners. So this is the red runner, this is the blue runner. Now you see a nice example right here, the same two pictures, how their upper body works right there, with the points, with the toes pointing actually more towards third base right here, and right here more pointing towards first base as a lefty, but a little bit more in. This pitcher should be on an angle with his heel more towards the rubber, and the toes more, a little bit more pointing in an angle towards, let's say, home plate. Now, another translation with a difference between a walking from the top and walking from the bottom pitcher, which is Blake Snell. He's a walk from the top guy. He will generate power from the bonds, leg extension, back muscle chain. Walk from the top. You see right here that back foot coming loose because he needs that, because the shoulders will indicate the movement from him and not his hips. That's why we see walking from the top people, whatever they do, throwing a baseball, making a swing, whatever, that they have that acceleration in their movement. For example, if you see a walk from the bottom guy swinging a bat or throwing a baseball, everything is in one tempo and one rhythm. As you can see with Darvish right here, he generates power from the anchor. He needs that back foot being solid as much as he can, because he needs that to get all his energy going forward. Now, as I said, I was going to talk briefly about one motor preference, which is in this case was a walking top and walking bottom differences. But we also have a lot of other motor preferences. For example, are you a vertical or a horizontal oriented athlete? Do you have a high or a low mobile point? Are you a high or a low frequency vision athlete? Do you have a right or left motor eye? Do you have a right or left motor shoulder? What is actually your motor profile group with the properties? What are your trigger points? What are your deep motivational drivers? And all is this related to the Myers Briggs type indicator profile of the individual. So we also know how we have to deal with him on the cognitive and the emotional side of it. For now, I want to thank you again for stopping by, checking out my information. Please keep an eye on the website. Please keep an eye on social media, because there's going to be a lot of more great stuff coming out in the upcoming weeks. If you have any questions, please get in contact through the contact form on this website. I'm more than happy to reply to all of you guys. For now, again, thank you for stopping by, and I want all of you the best and good luck. Thank you.